everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to answer the question of what is the secret to getting better at your deadlift. Well, you should probably just deadlift more often. Alright guys, but seriously, that's only part of the answer, so let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilling my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this, because that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek answer. But you will hear many coaches and experts who really do understand the deadlift will tell you when people say, oh man, I've been doing lots of pull-ups trying to improve my deadlift. What's the best form of pull-up or chin-up as a deadlift accessory? And the coach will usually say the deadlift. You should probably deadlift more. You probably deadlift more often. That would help your deadlift more than an upper back exercise, which is actually true, specificity of training. And I'm not saying back exercises can't improve your deadlift, because they do. All back exercises will probably have some little carryover to your deadlift, right? Almost all of them will. But if you have the recovery left to do more of the exact style of deadlift that you wish to improve on, you should probably do it more often. You should probably do it more often. And conversely, even sumo and conventional do have carryover to each other. So if you actually care about one more than the other, let's say you compete with one, you can still get stronger on the other doing the main one. And what you're going to find is that there are multiple world record holders who, even with the sumo deadlift, who they focus on their conventional deadlift a lot to improve their sumo, right? They don't just sumo pull. Most of your people who pull close to world record levels sumo pulls or world record sumo pulls, all of them train the conventional. In other words, the conventional deadlift is actually a pretty good way to get stronger at all forms of deadlifting, right? This isn't difficult to understand. The problem is recovery from it. So really the answer is twofold. It's a twofold answer. If you want to get better at deadlifting, you need to do more pulling from the floor in general. Number two, you need to find your leverage. You need to get more efficient at your leverage, right? It's that simple. And what do I mean when I say pulling from the floor? When I say pulling from the floor, if your deadlift is a priority, you want to get a stronger deadlift, you need to pull from the floor every time you go to the gym. Now, notice I didn't say deadlift, but I said you need to pull from the floor. In other words, if you have any days where you go work out and you lift, and you do not do some exercise where you pull from the floor and then you complain because your deadlift is weak or it's not where you want it to be, this is basically self-inflicted. It's self-inflicted. People say, well, I'm on a push-pull leg split. Well, that's why your deadlift sucks. You're on a push-pull leg split and you're not blasting a gram a test. Did you think this was going to work? Like, someone who claims they're natty told you they do push-pull legs? You know. All right, get their drug stack to go with that. But yeah, I mean, seriously, the joking about that aside, if you do push-pull legs and you don't find some legs and some push exercise where you pull from the floor on the other 2 days, that could be why your deadlift is suffering. Or you have days where you come in and you do other things so you're thinking of as exercises, or you have days where you come in, well, I mean, I pull from rack, I pull off of pins. Well, I'm doing good mornings. Isn't that working the same muscles? Yeah, you're not pulling from the floor. You have days where you come to the gym and don't do some exercise where you pull from the floor. That's part of your problem. Now, I didn't say it had to be a deadlift. How about every time you row, if you want your deadlift to go up, row off the floor? It could be a strict pin lay. It doesn't have to be a strict pin lay. There are other variations of rows where you pull from the floor. But pulling from the floor on your rows will give the best carryover to your deadlifts. There's ones where you can cheat, like Caller Willem does, or they're strict pin lays. Either one, they help. You're pulling from the floor. About your power cleans, power snatches. Now, there are going to be some guys, I know Clint Darden feels that power cleans don't carry over to the deadlift, but you are still pulling from the floor. Similar mechanics. But outside of squatting, you probably don't need any deadlift accessory movements that do not pull from the floor. But you need to be pulling from the floor every time you go to the gym. I don't care whether it's a power clean, I don't care whether it's some sort of row from the floor, I don't care whether it's some sort of deadlift variation, deficit deadlift, a snatch grip deadlift, pause deadlift. I'm not a fan of those. I don't understand why people do them, but people love them. Something like that. You need to be doing some sort of pull from the floor every time you go to the gym. Even if it's an afterthought, an accessory movement. even if it's just something you're throwing in at the end of a different workout. But this is kind of the problem we come to where people start splitting things up. You know, you end up not getting the stuff done that you need to be doing to be focusing on. Because if you want to get better at something, you need to be doing it all the time. Right? If you have something you want to get better at and you're not doing something to improve on it every time you train, you can't expect to not get to get the results that you want at it. You're not going to get as good at it as you want. All right, that's just realistic. You better find a way to row or clean or do something at the end of every single workout, even if you're training some other set of body parts. If your deadlift's not going up, you need to be pulling from the floor more often, preferably every time you walk in the gym. Furthermore, you've got to find your leverages. A lot of people, they come in, they deadlift, and they do silly stuff because they saw some really strong deadlifter doing it somewhere, and they do stuff like they'll do a real wide grip on their deadlift. And they don't realize the guys who grip the deadlift real wide and have a strong deadlift is because they're really, really, really fat. In other words, they have a belly that gets in the way. That's the only reason people do a wide stance with a wide grip. If that person magically had all their belly fat disappear, like that guy you see who deadlifts 700 pounds that way, that really fat guy, if his belly magically disappeared and he brought his footing and his grip in, his 700 deadlift would probably turn into a 750 or an 800 deadlift. His belly gets in the way and forces him to have a lighter deadlift. Why do you think, what's his name, that Ray Williams, strongest drug-tested squatter in the world, he's enormously fat. Why is his deadlift terrible compared to lighter lifters and who are leaner? He doesn't have a good deadlift compared to, say, the enhanced world, right? That's because he's got a big belly getting in the way. He can't get the best leverages. The guy has the muscle to deadlift more than he has. Right? That guy has enough muscle mass to deadlift at least 100 pounds more than he pulls in comp. He cannot get in the best positions. He can't get his leverages because his fat gets in the way. If you're not in that situation, you need to be looking at what's the narrowest grip I can get away with. Where do I need to place my feet? Where do I need to place my heels? Where do I need to place everything where I can keep the bar mid-foot? Where do I place everything where I can keep the bar as close as possible to my center of balance? And that involves thinking of stuff like your knee angles, where you place your feet, so that you don't have the bar have to swing out in front of you very far to clear the knees. That's what I mean by finding your leverages, finding your ideal hip height so that you get the most power and drive off the floor and you can have the straightest line of pull. That's your other big deal. People don't deadlift efficiently. They might have the musculature, they might have the strength to have a strong deadlift, but I see plenty of guys in gyms who could in no time be at a 500 deadlift who are doing 365. They're doing 405. And you see that all the time. At commercial gyms, when you see guys who do deadlift, it's not that they couldn't have a 500 deadlift in 3 months. It's that they don't know how to perform the deadlift and make the best use of their leverages. All right, and so I can demonstrate what I mean by leverages. I'm going to show you guys a clip a couple of times in here of me deadlifting the other day. I want you to notice a couple things with my setup. My heels are about 3 to 4 inches apart. My toes are turned out, right? So when you watch me pull, I want you to watch the fact that the bar clears my knees very easily, because the knees do not have to jut forward due to that, because any forward jutting the knees have to do to deal with my hips dropping, they are turned out at 45 degrees instead of pushed straight ahead. And by doing that, this is a perfect example of finding your levers. That lets me pull the bar in a straighter line. In other words, the bar doesn't have to swing past my knees because my knees turn out. So again, if you guys think about a hypotenuse, this is a perfect example, of finding the levers that let you pull in a straight line. So hopefully that clarifies what I'm talking about when I say that is one example of many. They don't know how to find this stuff, and they just haven't had enough actual practice at the proper biomechanics. They actually already have the muscle and the strength to pull the lift off, at least maybe barring, maybe some weak core or something. There could be some weaknesses there, but most of the time it's a leverage issue, and they haven't trained the movement pattern in the right leverages. And a lot of those guys could put 100 pounds on their deadlift inside of a few months just by learning to perform the lift correctly, at least for their structure. So that's another big thing, guys. It's number one, you need to be pulling off the floor way more often if your deadlift's not going up. at the rate that you want it. Number two, you need to get your form down so that you get better leverages for your biomechanics. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.